welcome back to Bottom Deck Achievements, a Hearthstone achievement hunting series. I feel like every week, without fail, in these videos, as I'm claiming the achievements that I've earned, I've said a variation of this sentence just about every time. I've been working on it in Duels, but I'll talk about that another week. Well, my friends, that week is now. I got a couple Duels lists that I want to go over and discuss that I've been using to work on some of these. But first, as always, I got a couple I need to claim, so let's get to it. I will be talking about all three of these achievements when I go over a Duels list for Druid, but for now, I have Phase 2 of this Gain Attack with Druid achievement. Almost just a little more than 200 to go. This one's going a lot faster than I expected. 600 attack seems like a lot, but it builds up over time. All those pennies add up, and it's not that bad so far. I'll get this one soon enough. Moving on, I got the first step of the Rat King achievement, another one that I will be talking about upcoming later in this video. This one's a little rough, but I'll be talking about that in a bit. Moving on, looks like I have just a lot of neutral ones. Yep, got the last phase of the trading one. As always, I'm trading a lot more than I'm actually playing the tradable cards. Just because it's so easy. It's 1 mana, you just drag it over to your deck. It feels really good. Tradible's a really cool mechanic. I feel like the problem I'm having is, like I've said in other videos, I feel like I keep trading and not playing the tradable cards. So, whatever. Let's see. The Pandaren Importer one. This one went pretty smoothly. I run this card a lot in Duels. 10 mount spells. Really, the only one I'm playing is the Kodo mount, the Druid one. I think all of these casts have been that particular one. The mounts themselves don't seem super good, but I do like the Druid one. Moving on, Rustrot Viper is a pretty decent card, actually. Done a lot of destroying. Well, enough destroying with this one. Is this one that... Yeah, it looks like I've done exactly 10. I think some of these track beyond the max. If you've done more than that, like... no, this doesn't. Okay. Some of them do, some of them don't. And finally, I've been running this card, the Stubborn Suspect, until I popped the achievement, that is. This one didn't take too long. I just threw it into... I think I threw it into my Hunter list in Duels. Perhaps. I'll need to look at the list again. But this one did not take too long, but I did kind of pop this Death Rattle a bunch of times in one turn. So we got there. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't atrocious. It'll happen eventually. And I believe that's it. So let's go up and look at our percent complete. 25%. We are, looking at the date, we are about a month into the set. Not quite. We still have about a week to go before we've had the set for a month, and I'm apparently a quarter of the way there, so I'm doing right on pace. That feels pretty good. But anyway, let us dig into the meat of this video, and I got 5 lists that I want to go over in Duels to help you max out your achievements. I think that's what I said for the first time around. Maximum achieving in Duels. Let's get to it. I am gonna start with Druid here, but first I want to talk about Priest for just one moment. I don't have a refined list together, but they have one hero power that's available in Duels that deals 1 damage to your opponent's face whenever you play a spell. Now, this does count towards the dealing damage with Priest hero powers achievement. If you don't have or don't want to play Dark Bishop Benedictus, or you don't want to or can't play Highlander Priest in Wild, this is a really good alternative because you can do some pretty nasty stuff early on with just an unrefined build. And yeah, you're probably seeing a highlight on the screen right now, but you can do some disgusting stuff. Anyway, moving on to Druid, the first class I want to really focus on, but I won't spend too much time talking about this list because just the other day I came across a list running around in Standard that's very much like this, just with most of the cards doubled up. But it's been doing pretty well for me, this Aggro Druid list. So I think I'm mostly going to stick to Constructed Standard to clear out most of the Druid achievements for here. But if you want to stick to Duels, this is a fine list to do things with. because you get to cover all 3 of the Druid achievements with this list. Vibrant Squirrel and Man Crick are there for the playing cast when drawn spells, so you don't have to craft that terrible legendary that makes your next 3 spells cast when drawn. Vibrant Squirrel gives you 4 acorns into your deck, which summon squirrels, and then of course Man Crick gives you what is it? Man Crick Consumed by Hatred, the 3/7 that immediately attacks your opponent's face. So that's a good, set of cast when drawn spells right there. This list also runs, let's see, Park Panther, which is a great card. When it swings into anything, your face gets +3 attack. And I will say that this list is kind of wrong. It has Innervate in it, but I forgot to put in Moon-Touched Amulet. I was short 1 card and couldn't remember off the top of my head, so I just stuck in Innervate. But Moon-Touched Amulet goes really well in this deck. It's fairly easy to corrupt, and it's great in duels. I also picked the hero power that lets you choose between +2 attack or +2 spell damage. Most of the time, you're going to pick that attack, but a +2 bump for 2 mana every time really beats out Malfurion in Constructed. So there's quite a few ways to gain attack with this list, and also you tend to find a lot more ways as well in the card buckets as well, so it's not too bad. And then of course we have composting in there because it's just a decent card draw engine, especially in that constructed list I mentioned. I'll probably put that whole list down in the description of this video, but composting is a really cool way to refill your hand. It works great if you happen to hit a bunch of squirrels or if you happen to summon a bunch of treants. I tried to put in a couple cards that summon treants, landscaping, and of course Arbor Up as well. Thorn Growth Sentries makes 2 bodies, so the soil, that's kind of difficult to say, can summon a treant as well. So there's quite a few ways to get a decently wide board. Honestly, if you can compost 3 things with 1 cast, it's pretty worth it. Additionally, I put in a couple things. I picked the Herding Horn as my treasure to start this run. None of the Druid ones seem to work too well with this list, but at the very least, Herding Horn is a 0-cost weapon, which there's an achievement for. And if you happen to summon that and summon Park Panther while you have it up, getting 2 of those for the cost of 1 is potentially game-winning. It feels really good. Other than that, I believe, I run Rustrot Viper for tradable stuff, and then to destroy weapons. There tends to be, weapons every now and again here in Duels. And Pandaren Importer, which is just a good value card to find something that you can't otherwise put in your deck, because you are limited on your slots for stuff in your starting deck. So Pandaren Importer, not super reliable, but occasionally you'll find something good from them. Anyway, I think that's about it for Druid, so let's move on to Hunter. Okay, before I fully move on to Hunter, I did forget to say in the Druid list that my best number of wins in a single run is 5. That was a pretty good run. I tend to average around 3, I feel like, which, will still give you positive MMR at the end of the day. So take that for what you will. But moving into the Druid list, we go heavy on the death rattles here. Because the main thing we want to do is play the Rat King, have him die, summon a bunch more stuff, have them die to resurrect the Rat King. That is the one achievement that's going to take the absolute longest. Now, thankfully, they did throw in a bunch of things that can make wide boards. Namely, surprisingly, Rodent Nest is an all-star in this list. If you can play that and do the hero power to proc its death rattle on the same turn, it essentially fills up your board. It's pretty sick. If you happen to find anything that can buff your board, like there's a treasure called Old Militia Horn, oof, it's disgusting. It's super good. And if your opponent happens to leave up Rodent Nest for whatever reason, getting multiple procs of that death rattle is crushing to your opponent. The list is filled out with a couple other death rattles because we can't just rely on the one. Bloated Python is always fun in duels. Devilsaur Egg, also great. And then if you get to the late game, Dark Moon Tonk, getting that death rattle off with your hero power feels really good. Especially with the starting treasure that we take, the Death Strider. I had one game. I don't know if I recorded it. I don't know if I'm showing footage of it right here, but I played it down at a point in the run when it procced 4 death rattles, so it just like totally obliterated everything on my opponent's side of the board with 4 procs of the Tonk death rattle. It's pretty disgusting. One thing to keep in mind here is that if the Rat King is alive on your board and you use your hero power, proccing its death rattle just creates a dormant minion. Now this can be cool, but you really have to keep in mind with your board space. But if you can manage to resurrect multiple copies of the Rat King, it feels pretty great. So resurrecting the Rat King and summoning a bunch of rats are pretty much the 2 achievements that we're chasing with this list. Now I did have Stubborn Suspect in here as well. Like I said, I think I procced that death rattle a bunch of times to summon the legendary minion. But once you get that achievement, that card comes out. That's just there to get that complete. You can honestly replace it with whatever you want. Another cheap death rattle, perhaps. But yeah, the list pretty much speaks for itself. Explosive Trap is really good for the few matchups where, like against Druid, that like to summon a bunch of small guys. Explosive Trap can really help because this deck, you tend to want to play something and use your hero power in the same turn as you play it, which leads to a bit more slow gameplay. So Explosive Trap can really help against those super early starts from your opponent. But other than that, once you get to the late game, you have some disgusting stuff in your arsenal. My personal best with this, I think it was this exact list, was 8 wins, which is pretty dang good. And it's a lot of fun. Like I said, Rodent Nest is a surprising MVP. Really, really fun to just summon a bunch of small boys. But yeah, try it out, and hopefully you can summon some rats and the Rat King with it, because that's not really working out in Constructed. This is one that is pretty much strictly to Duels that does not translate over to Constructed Hearthstone. So take that for what you will, and try it out. Moving on to Mage, this is probably the class I've played the most in Duels this season. And honestly, this list is really only built to complete one particular Mage achievement, and that is the Celestial Ink set, discounting spells with it. But if you'll notice, all the spells are fire. There is one bucket of cards that you're offered that's just simply called Fire with a bunch of exclamation points. And you can get Grand Magus Antonidas from this bucket. I've gotten him probably about 4 times now. Unfortunately, I've been unsuccessful every time in completing that particular achievement. I think I got spoiled in that I was offered to him like the first 2 runs I did of Mage, so I was like, oh, you must get him like all the time. No, you don't. But I tend to build the decks with just a bunch of fire spells in them just to be safe in case I am offered Antonidas. But it does tend to work out. I've maxed out at 7 wins with this list. There's a bunch of tradable stuff with the Guild Trader, Fire Sale, and good old Rustrot Viper. So there's a bunch of stuff you can trade for, and with Ignite in your deck, you will want to be cycling as much as you can, because there's not a lot of other card draw. We pick Yogg-tastic Treats, just honestly because I think it's fun, and none of the other ones super help out for it. As far as list goes, once again, we have Pandaren Importer, because it's good value, and when you're pretty much just building your whole deck with fire spells, it's good to be able to discover something else like a Frostbolt or something. Celestial Ink set it's okay. Sometimes you get really unlucky and it will hit like a First Flame or something like that, but if it hits a Fireball or a Firelands Portal, that feels incredible. I had it hit Yogg-tastic Treats, or Yogg-tastic Tasties once, and playing that really early felt really fun. But the list itself is pretty decent. Like I said, I've topped out here at 7 wins. Nothing to sneeze at. And up next, we have Rogue, which is currently the worst performing class in Constructed Standard. Now, at the very beginning of United in Stormwind, there was a Miracle Rogue list with the Garrote. Garrote? I still don't know how to pronounce that word. A Miracle Garrote list, which basically used a bunch of the Aug Merchants to create spell damage +1 minions, and Auctioneer to essentially draw through your whole deck and try to do a ton of damage with the bleed cards. That has since pretty much fallen off and is never really seen these days. But it's not terrible in duels, especially when you have access to powerhouses like Azure Drake, which draws you a card and gives you spell damage. We do have a couple other achievements built in here, namely with Tomb Pillager and Loan Shark. These are both Death Rattle cards that give you a coin. Now, Loan Shark also gives your opponent a coin, but that's where Sketchy Information comes in, which draws you a Death Rattle card from your deck that costs 4 or less, and you trigger the Death Rattle. Now, there's other Death Rattles in this list, like Blood Mage Thalnos, another card draw and spell damage engine, which is fine to hit. It's essentially you draw him and then you draw another card. That's fine. But if you can happen to hit Loan Shark with your Sketchy Information, adding 2 coins to your hand feels really good. I believe the achievement is to add a total of 100 coins to any player's hands by whatever means possible, which doesn't really see any play in Constructed, I don't believe. So it's fine here. Tomb Pillager is just a card that I enjoy. Still doesn't really see much play, but it's a fine drop. Gives you a coin when it dies. But yeah, that's about it. There's nothing too complicated about this deck. You just kind of play out your stuff, look for Garrote, and hope that you can hit a couple bleeds when you have spell damage minions out. If you happen to hit any with spell damage minions out, consider that a win. I've had games where I dealt like 2 damage among all Garrote and bleeds, and I've had games where I dealt like 10 or 11. So it's a bit swingy, but it's a decent way to get this achievement done because, let's face it, it's not very good in Constructed. I have topped out with this list at 4 wins, but it was when I was recording footage for this episode, and so I had to just retire it and move on. I was at 4 wins and 0 losses, so you can probably predict that I would have gotten at least 1 more win. So not all bad there, but you definitely do have to run into the correct opponents with it. And finally, we have Warrior. Now, this list is not as good as the Control Warrior list that I talked about in the Barons Duels video that I did, but this one is still fun. I've topped out here at 3 wins, but it is also the class I've played the least that I'm talking about today. We have a couple achievements built in here, but the big one that we're looking for is summoning minions from your deck as Warrior. Now there's 2 cards that do that here. The Cowardly Grunt, a 6-mana 6/2 that has a Death Rattle, summon a random minion from your deck, and the starting treasure of Brewster the Brutal. Shoutouts to the Angry Chicken podcast, which will summon rush minions from your deck whenever that attacks. We use the starting hero power to make a minion attack a random enemy minion. That way you can get 2 attacks out of Brewster. You can activate Kresh's Frenzy the turn you play it, and it's just a helpful hero power to have. We run pretty heavy on rush minions with, let's see, just going down the list, Stonemaul Anchorman, Claw Machine, Brewster himself, but I guess he won't pull himself, and Goldshire Knoll. Now, there is an achievement with Goldshire Knoll as well, to just play it a bunch of times at a discount. Its effect is such that it gets cheaper based on the number of cards in your hand. So, with cards like War Cash, my good old hipster favorite for Warrior in Duels, you have ways to draw cards or add stuff to your hand. It can get done. We have 2 tradable cards in Rustrot Viper and Heavy Plate. Heavy Plate actually saved my life as I was recording footage for this. I was very, very much about to die, but Heavy Plate literally afforded me the 1 turn I needed to turn things around and take the game. Pretty cool there for a card that just gains a little bit of armor. Now, on the topic of Cowardly Grunt, pulling stuff from your deck, as we do have access to Kobolds and Catacombs, there is a 6-mana spell, Gather Your Party, I believe it's called, that has the exact same effect. Now, whether or not this is better than just a body that does it on Death Rattle, I'm not quite sure. I'm leaning towards the body being more useful, because you can just play it and use your hero power the same turn. But that option is there if you want to just run 1 more spell in your deck, as opposed to just another guy. Or if you want to run both, that option's available as well. We also have from Skullomance, Commencement, which for 7 mana does the same thing, except gives it Divine Shield. So that's, once again, another option. Lothar is terrible in this deck. I just put him in there just because I had him, but he has done like literally zero work for me, so I need to find a replacement for him. But he did gain stats one time. Out of all the games I ever played, he gained stats one time. Pretty brutal. And I'm not talking about Brewster. But yeah, this deck is just fun. I enjoy playing this. I do miss having the top end of Grom Hellscream with the pinging a guy hero power, because that felt really good to just get lethal out of nowhere with Grom. But other than that, this list will do. Anyway, like I said, the list is not as good as the pure control list from last time, where I think we were just mainly focused on getting the weapon from Kresh and swinging with it a bunch of times. But this one will get you here for a couple achievements, and very, very slowly, I guess, for Stonewall Anchorman. I think you have to attack 500 times with pirates for the last level of that achievement. So, with only one pirate in this deck, I think that'll take a while, but just going wild and play Pirate Warrior. It's a fine deck. It's a great deck right now, actually. Okay, y'all, that is going to do it for me today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the lists. Hope you run a couple of them yourself and get that Duels MMR up and get a couple achievements along the way. If you've been playing any Duels and have any lists you want to share, feel free to leave those in the comments. Or if you have any achievements that you'd like to see covered in a future video, please feel free to leave those as well. Leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you'd be so kind as to do so. Other than that, follow me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at HeyTallman at both places. I'd love to see you. And with all that being said, that is going to do it for me. So, as always, take easy. Thank you for watching. May the card you need the most never be at the bottom of your deck.